Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Pressure channel here at YouTube, and of course I'm here with the top 40 best rock and metal albums of 2016. Definitely quite a bit of great releases here within this year, but only those can make at least the top 40. So before I do get in to the the top 40 lists, let me definitely bring up some honorable mentions, ones that could have made the list but didn't. One is OMENS Hammer Damage. It could have made the list, but it just wasn't that good of an album. It definitely wasn't terrible, but OMEN has released better albums. But it was still not a bad one. Also, I'm also forgetting another one I want to kind of mention before the OMEN was TOXIKULL's Black Sheep. Another good album, but it just didn't make the list. Next one is SEAX's Speed Metal Mania. I did do a review for that one as well, but it wasn't a bad album. It was good, but it just wasn't enough to make the top 40. And then, of course, my own release, X-MORTA's Blood Thunder. I don't know. So, with that, let's definitely get into the actual top 40. So, I've made this through, radio music. So, coming in at number 40, surprisingly, is TYGERS of Tang's newest album. Now, I had some choice words for that album when I reviewed it. I gave it even the score of 6.8 out of 10, but re-listening to it, it actually is a grower. It still has some issues with me, but overall it's a very enjoyable album, and it's definitely better than OMENS Hammer Damage. And I gave OMENS Hammer Damage almost about like a 7 point whatever out of 10. But TYGERS of Tang, somehow their album just kind of went a little further up, but it still isn't really a bad album. So it's there at number 40. I don't want to talk about too much about this stuff. I kind of want to go at least as quick as possible with these. So hope you don't mind with that, because it's a long list. 40. My last one was a top 20. Yeah, let's move on. Coming in at number 39 is High Spirits Motivator. Now, Sean Black has definitely done quite a bit of stuff, and I definitely knew about High Spirits for quite a while. But Motivator is definitely a good album. It's not as, I don't think it's probably the best thing he's done. It's got some definitely some good tracks, some good energy, got some good attitude. I think it's like You Want to Be a Star or something like that. That just isn't really the best song off it. To me, it just sucks. But it still isn't a bad album, and it definitely deserved the top 39 slot. Alright, so coming in at number 38 is, surprisingly, this could have been in the top 10, or could have made the top 20 part of this list, but it didn't. Is ANTHRAX's For All Kings. Now, I reviewed this one really late in December of 2015, because it ended up accidentally getting leaked on the Bandcamp at that time. But I listened to it and I reviewed it at that time. Since then, it's definitely a good album. It's definitely, again, shows that ANTHRAX are still, pumping out at least some good quality, metal. But due to some of the other albums I had reviewed and such, this album ended up getting bumped to the bottom. But even for number 38, it still is pretty high, but not as high enough. But still, great album though from ANTHRAX. Alright, so coming in at number 37, I didn't review this album. I wanted to, but I didn't get to listen to it until when trying to put together this list, and that's Masters, an Epiphany of Hate. Now this album is definitely a solid album from Paul Speckman and co. It's definitely a great death thrash metal record. It's got, again, still retains that classic master sound that you would expect, but it's definitely a solid album nonetheless. I definitely enjoyed it, and it was definitely enough to make the top list, you know, top 40. Definitely a good album nonetheless. So, moving on. Coming in at number 36 is Insomniacs with Amphetamines. Now, if you don't know who Insomniacs are, it's of course Jimmy's newest band. Of course, if you don't know who Jimmy is, he was from the band Speed Boozer. If you don't know where they are, well, how about you just go search for them on Metal Archives. And of course, he's also in the recent lineup for Evil Army. He's also, of course, a little friend of mine as well. Definitely, this is a solid album. He did ask me to review this, but I was a stubborn person that didn't really get around to it. But upon putting this list together, I did listen to it, and it's definitely a solid album. It kind of pushes it for being metal, because it's more on the punk side of things. Kind of like crust punk. It's still a very solid album, and of course, the influence from Motorhead is definitely there. It's definitely a solid album. Raw, but full of attitude. Definitely a good album. Alright, so coming in at number 35, I could have reviewed this one. I had picked this up earlier this year, but I didn't. It's, of course, Santana's 5. Of course, this is the 5th album to have, you know, the lineup that recorded Santana 3 and 4. Of course, it features pretty much all of the members that were also on the first 2 albums. It's definitely an album that definitely goes back to that classic 70s sound from Santana. It does. But for that, it was definitely a solid album. It's got some good tracks, some that are alright, but it's definitely what you expect from Santana from the 70s. It's also very, you know, melodic. It's got a lot of good guitar solos, even Greg Raleigh as well, putting, you know, some good keyboard solos. It's definitely a solid album from Santana, and it definitely got the top 35 slot. Alright, so let's definitely move on. Alright, so coming in at number 34 is an album that I did review, and that's Vandallus's On the High Side. And this was their debut. It's a solid slab of sleazy hard rock, heavy metal. Definitely a good album if you're a fan of Scorpions or even Hazard, which is one of Herman Frank's. Was his name Herman Frank or something? I think that was his name. Yeah, Accept. That was his band, and that's the band that I definitely kind of, you know, compare to Vandallus. Definitely a solid album from Vandallus. Alright, so coming in at number 34 is an album that I did also review as well, and that's, of course, the Spell's debut full-length album titled For None and All. This, of course, was their debut for Bad Omen Records, excuse me. And it was definitely a departure from that sort of new wave or traditional heavy metal sound, but as if you had heard the Full Moon Sessions, you would have kind of figured what type of sound they would take with this one. It's very 70s sounding. It's almost kind of mixing a little bit traditional metal with almost like heavy psych of some sort. It's a very interesting album, and it's also, at times, it grows on you. It's a great slab of traditional heavy psych metal or some sort. It's a great mixture of both genres. I like it. So, with that, coming in at number 32 is Iron Spell's Electric Conjuring. Now this is definitely a solid album for definitely one. I did review this as well. Of course, they are a Chilean heavy metal band, and this was their debut full-length album, and it definitely was a solid one for a debut album. Definitely shows that the band really showed quite a bit of promise within there. A lot of good riffage. Got a great attitude, just great. At times very great writing. It's melodic. It's heavy. Even the production kind of being raw, but has enough backbone to it. It's a good, solid slab of heavy metal from Iron Spell. Definitely a good album. Alright, so coming in at number 31, I just reviewed this last month as a part of my, recommendations, month back in November. This, of course, is Lucifer's Hammer, Beyond the Omens. This is definitely a solid slab of metal. Definitely still close to that new wave or traditional heavy metal sound. Definitely more reminding me a little bit of, maybe a little bit of Cauldron or Ambush is definitely one that really comes to mind. It's definitely a solid album. It is definitely one that I definitely do highly recommend to those that really want some good metal. So, with that definitely ends out the 40 up to 31. It's time to get in to 30. Let me kind of switch that out. So, coming in at number 30, I pretty much had at least somewhat hopes when I heard that they were releasing a album this year. Because I loved their album from last year. I liked it. That album ended up making my top 10. This one didn't. Coming in at number 30, like I think I might have repeated quite a bit of times, is Ranger's second and newest album, Speed and Violence. This album, I had, when I first heard, the single that was released before it, which was titled Lethal Assault, Lethal Attack, something like that, and somehow it just didn't click with me. But the thing is, I still wanted to give the album a chance when it was going to be released. I still wanted to, but still, upon reviewing it, it definitely was a little bit to be desired. It still isn't a bad album. It's got a lot of good riffs. It's got at least some, it's still there, but I think that my main issue with this album has to be the production. It's very sterile sounding. It isn't like the production that you expect on Nights of Darkness and even Where Evil Dwells. It sounds very demo-ish. And they've released some demos before, and it's definitely much better production than their demos, but at the same time, it's just not really the type of production to really, fitting for this type of album. If it had much better production, maybe something else closer to Nights of Darkness or even the Where Evil Dwells album, it probably would have been able to, heighten up, I guess, the score. Would have at least made the songs really pop out more. But due to the fact of the production, which I think the band produced themselves, it definitely kind of threw it to a notch. Still not a bad album. I still liked it, but they've released better stuff. Where Evil Dwells is still actually my favorite album from Ranger. You may agree or disagree with that, but that's what I did, and that album ended up making my top 10. This didn't, but it still deserved to be in my top 40 due to at least somewhat effort there. Alright, so coming in at number 29, surprisingly, this album ended up being somewhat better than Ranger's Speed and Violence, and that is the comeback record from Steve Grimmett. And this, of course, is the first thing to be released under Steve Grimmett's Grim Reaper. And its album is titled Walking in the Shadows. Definitely a good album in many ways. It still retains that, that Grim Reaper sound that you expect from their classic stuff from the 80s. But it's a good album. Not really the best thing he's done, but for what it is, it's still a solid album and it's very enjoyable. So, with that. So coming in now at number 28 is BLIZZEN's debut album titled Genesis Reversed. This is definitely a solid slab of new wave traditional metal, and of course you definitely have at least a few new wave or traditional metal bands that did release stuff here in 2016, but this album is definitely kind of close to really being one of the best of the crop, but not really as much. It's still good. Reminds me a lot of Ambush as well. It's kind of like the same thing with Lucifer's Hammer. It's a good album nonetheless, and definitely better than their EP. They definitely show quite a bit of promise, and that's why it definitely got the 28th slot here in the top 40 list. So, with that, coming in at number 27 is ARMORY's debut full-length album titled World Peace, Cosmic War. This is definitely almost on the extreme side of speed thrash. Definitely a lot of melodies. It's very melodic. Almost reminds me a little bit of Savage Grace on fucking crack. This is definitely a solid release, and of course it features cameos as well, or guest appearances from 2 members of RAM. One of them also being singer. Oh God, I can't remember his name now. That's bad. That's bad. Anyways, the singer of RAM definitely makes an appearance on the last track, which is a epic song. Really good release from ARMORY, and they definitely show a lot of promise as well. Alright, so coming in number 26, this is a band I also had reviewed as well for this year. This, of course, is German thrashers Reactory with Heavy. Of course, I had their 2014 album High on Radiation made my list for Rate Your Music when I was doing that stuff before doing more videos. But their second album here in 2016 titled Heavy, it definitely kind of shows it progressing. It's definitely got a lot of hooks, it's got a lot of cool riffs and everything. It's definitely almost kind of mixing a little bit stoner within their brand of thrash. Good album. Of course, it features a pretty unique cover of Motorhead's Eat the Rich. Good album. Alright, so coming in at number 25 is Anvil's. Anvil is Anvil. Definitely a solid album from Anvil, and I do like this album more than their album from 2013, which is titled Hope in Hell. It's a good album. I think the reason why I like the sound more than Hope in Hell is probably because of the production. Who of course is Martin Manus Pfeiffer, who of course is best known for producing Udo's stuff. He definitely gives the band at least that classic sound from like albums such as Metal on Metal, Forged in Fire, classics like that. It's definitely very 80s sounding. Lips' guitar tone is very thick, and it's got a real tone to it, real warm. But the album is definitely solid. It's got great riffs, and it's definitely good. Definitely one of the downsides to this album is, of course, Gun Control and Die for a Lie. Not because of, for me, it's not because of totally of the lyrics. Probably for the fact, well, Gun Control does have a good riffage, good, riffs there and such. But I think the problem is with the track, is I think to the fact that is Lips really for Gun Control or is he not? But Die for a Lie, it definitely has that sort of jackhammer type of, sound to it, but it's definitely not nearly as good as the song Jackhammer off of, well, Metal on Metal. But it's got a lot of good songs on here. There really isn't anything bad really about it. It's got good riffs to it, and it's definitely one that got the 25 slot here in my top 40 list. Alright, let's definitely move this on. Alright, so coming in at number 24 is Quartz's comeback album titled Fear No Evil. Definitely is a solid album from Quartz. Definitely got some good riffs. Of course, the new singer who, you know what? I think I got his stuff in here, his name. Can't really think at this point. I don't want to make this too long. I'm going to end up doing that. It's going to be pretty fucking terrible. Here we go. What's his name? David Garner. Definitely, he's the new singer, and he definitely fits Quartz's, style very well. He's definitely at times reminds me a little bit of Mike Taylor, who just recently passed away this year. Definitely was a sad loss, but he definitely fits that style very well, and he definitely makes Fear No Evil pretty damn good. So, with that, coming in at number 23, this could have also been in the top 10 list because due to, how much popular the album is. Why should I base my, list off of what's popular? It's more about what I liked. It's more personal. But this album definitely grew on me than my initial first listen when I reviewed it here in back in early of 2006, and that is Megadeth's Dystopia. when I first listened to it, it didn't really hit me as much. But the second time I played it as well, and I guess maybe frequent or so, it definitely grows. It's a good album from Megadeth. It's really not that bad. At times I do think it's a little better than Anthrax's album from this year, you know, For All Kings. It's a good album, and I definitely do see why people actually like it. It's definitely better than Super Collider, and it's definitely better than 13. But, and at times it's probably a little better than Endgame. It's still, it's a good album. It's got a lot of good tracks on here. I do like it. It's definitely, at times, maybe his darkest album since his 80s material. Everything from like, you know, Peace Sells But Who's Buying, or maybe even, you know, Killing's My Business, up to Rest in Peace. It's a good album. Definitely, that was, now of course this year has been pretty good for thrash as well, because it's definitely evident with the number 22 slot, which goes to EXUMER's newest album here in 2016. This is titled The Raging Tides. This is a solid album. When I reviewed this, you know, to do the whole EXUMER discography, this was definitely a good album, and it's definitely better than the you know, the Fire and Damnation back in 2012. It's got some good tracks on here. Everything about Fire. I think the first half is definitely good, but I like the second half better. But the thing is, this album is solidly put together, and it's probably the only thing here from Metal Blade Records. But it's a damn good album from EXUMER, and it's definitely closest to at least their 80s material, even though I think mostly to Rising from the Sea. It's a good album, in my opinion, from EXUMER. Alright, so coming at number 21 is the album that's playing in the background. This, of course, is Finland's own Angel Sword, and it's titled Rebels Beyond the Pale. I reviewed this album as well. I've been following these guys since back in 2014, 15, somewhere like that. It's a solid slab of, you know, metal. It's not really that new wave or traditional metal sounding. It's very more new wave or British heavy metal sounding. At times very Swedish as well. It's definitely a good, solid metal album. Got some good hooks here and there. It's a good album. Dismiss. I don't know, some on my computer. Thank you very much, McBee, for trying to haul this video up for a bit. Assholes. Okay, so the Angel Sword, Rebels Beyond the Pale, definitely made number 21. It's a solid album, definitely, and I definitely do recommend checking that album out. Alright, so that definitely ends the, the 20 slots. Now it's time to get into, or at least everything from up to 21. Now, coming in at number 20 is, of course, again, part of my, you know, band recommendations reviews for this, you know, that month of November. This, of course, is Iron Curtain's Guilty as Charged, and it definitely comes in at number 20, if I didn't say that already. It's definitely a solid slab of new wave, a traditional heavy metal. And it's definitely, I think, definitely one of the best ones of the crop in some ways. It's got good stuff, and it's probably the best album. I've heard some of their stuff before, but this one really has a lot of great hooks. It's got some good, you know, riff. It's got a lot more to it than some of their past stuff. It's definitely a solid album from Iron Curtain, and just definitely a good album. I really liked it. So, I don't want to keep this video too, you know, moving or slow or something like that, so let's definitely move on. It was definitely a good album, and it definitely deserved the top 20 slot. So, definitely get in on to number 19. And so coming in at number 19, like again, this year has been definitely good for thrash metal. A lot of great release, you know, a lot of releases in the thrash metal department, and here it definitely shows why. This, of course, is an old school German thrash metal band. That's Protector's album Cursed and Coronated. Wow. Again, Protector, just keep the quality up. This is very much close to their classic material from the 1980s, such as the Misanthropy EP, Golem, What a Shittium Skin, or even the Mad. This is just in that vein. Of course, I think it's the singer that's the only original member left. Most of it is definitely Swedish guys, but they really keep that quality going, and it's there, keeping true to that old school Protector sound. Just a solid slab of thrash. Good album from Protector. Alright, so coming in at number 18 is, of course, HELLBRINGER's newest album from this year, titled Awakened from the Abyss. Of course, these guys are pretty much Australia's answer to Slayer. This is definitely a solid album. It's definitely Hell Awaits Worship, but due to the fact that Slayer haven't really been that great these past few recent years, this album is kind of it's a breath of fresh air. It's definitely that old school Slayer sound you wish that they were sounding like on Repentless. Fucking good album, that, in my opinion, is definitely one that deserved the number 18 slot. So, coming at number 17 is HITTEN's State of Shock. Definitely a solid album within the new wave or traditional heavy metal, movement. And of course, there have been quite a bit of these bands that did make my list, and this one definitely got a little higher. Definitely a solid album from HITTEN, and probably their best album. They definitely do show promise. And of course, their album for 2014 was definitely a solid album nonetheless. So, let's definitely keep it going. Coming in at number 16 is, of course, there's another new wave, a traditional heavy metal band. This is Lethal Steel's debut full-length album titled Legion of the Night. And of course, I've actually known of the band members who was on Heavy Metal Rarities, where he would promote the band. This was definitely their debut full-length album. It's definitely a solid slab of new wave, a traditional heavy metal. It's very Swedish sounding. Of course, that old school Swedish metal sound with bands such as Torch or even early Europe. Just that type of sound. Gotham City. It's there. It's a good album. It definitely deserved the number 16 slot. So, next up, coming in at number 15 is new band. And this is GRAVEBREAKER's album, Sacrifice. Now, this is definitely a solid album. It's very raw because it was self-produced and was released independently through Bandcamp. And of course, in my review, I definitely said that somebody should sign these guys. And apparently, they did end up getting signed. And that label that just signed them recently ended up releasing this album physically, both on CD and vinyl. So definitely very cool. Someone probably listened to my review on YouTube. There's that. So coming in at number 14 is Strikers, Stand in the Fire. Now, when I reviewed this back in a few months ago, definitely a great album. These guys really, I think, are coming into their own sound. The sound really shows it. They definitely are not just being your typical new wave or traditional metal band. They're very much mixing a little bit of almost US power metal into their sound. It's really probably, and they're kind of getting rid of that tongue-in-cheek sort of lyrics that was on their earlier stuff. This is definitely a band that's maturing very well, and I definitely do like them. And I think they're one of the better new wave or traditional metal bands that come out of Canada. Good album from Striker. Alright, so coming in at number 13 is, and this is probably probably not the last new wave or traditional metal band on this list, but it probably is. This, of course, is Liquid Steel's Midnight Chaser. I think I might have said their name, I don't know. Definitely a solid album, and they definitely, just like Striker, on this album, they really are maturing very well, showing a lot of their love for Thin Lizzy. Great album. There is definitely not just, whatever you expect from it. They definitely are showing some promise. And they definitely are coming in their own, and they are an Austrian new wave of traditional heavy metal band. Great album. Alright, so coming in at number 12 is, of course, Vicious Rumors' newest album titled Concussion Protocol. Definitely a solid album from Vicious Rumors. It's definitely an album that definitely does go back to their sound that was on like Digital Dictator and their self-titled album from 1990. Great album, great riffs and everything. It's a solid album from Vicious Rumors. I can't say anything bad about it. It definitely deserved the number 12 slot, excuse me. Alright, finally, coming in at number 11 is, of course, SODOM's newest album here, and it's titled Decision Day. What a great album from Sodom. This is definitely an album that really does go back to their early sound. Not really, it's somewhere between Persecution Mania and guess maybe a little bit Agent Orange, or maybe the thrasher stuff off of Better Off Dead. It's definitely really close to that, and it's a great solid album from Sodom. Definitely deserving the number 11 spot. So now I'm going to stop this video because it's going to end up being a two-parter, I guess. So, because the next video is going to be the top 10. So, definitely stay tuned. I'll catch you later. If you have heard some of these albums, definitely post your comments down below. So, until then, later.